Ladies and gentlemen, Mother Kome has made Kenyans lose trust with the judiciary. Kome's court yesterday said that the housing levy is constitutional. This one came at the backdrop of the appellate court, which had ruled that the housing levy was unconstitutional. And for real, it is unconstitutional and against the law because it is forced against the thrust of Kenyans, whereby they pay the levy, but they do not own the houses. That's the funny thing. And even if they own, it is by buying. Imagine, they contribute a lot of money. The government build the houses on public land. The same land is sold to other people, some who never even contributed. And those who contributed also end up buying, if at all, they'll be owners of those houses. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at William Ruto is the only person who has the trust with the judiciary. William Ruto is the only president or the only person in Kenya who has trust with the Supreme Court. You remember when the impeachment case started at the High Court, William Ruto wanted the case to go to the Supreme Court. And even yesterday, a number of lawyers were arguing that the case should go to the Supreme Court. So the big question is, what is wrong with our Supreme Court? Because when you look at it, a 7-judge bench, usually when they hear the case, they are usually 7, most of the time, it's a full bench of 7. Led by the Chief Justice and the Deputy Chief Justice. You realize there are issues here. There's a lot of politics. You remember, there was a time that Mother Kome went to State House, I think to plead with William Ruto. Yet, these are 3 independent arms of the government. 3 independent. The judiciary, its work is to arbitrate. The executive, its work is to implement. And the legislature, its work is to make and amend laws. So when you see now judiciary going in bed with the executive, Kenyans must have all the reasons to lose trust. Remember the way they presided over the presidential petition of 2022. You remember the language of Mother Kome. Sijui hot air, chasing the wild goose, you are taken to a wild goose, sijui what. When you look at this court, in fact, the High Court is even more competent than the Supreme Court. This is one of the courts that will be disbanded. If Kenyans were to amend our constitution, this court needs to go home. If you look at the way Gachagua case is being presided, the way it is taking place, you realize that this is a Chief Justice who allows her deputy to nominate a 3-judge bench in the High Court to preside over Gachagua. And when you look at these judges, it is very clear. They rule against Gachagua. When you look at it, you see, this is part of the executive. It's an extension of State House. This is now the Chief Justice, even after allowing the Deputy Chief Justice to constitute 3-judge bench, she does not come out to explain to Kenyans, even when it is contested in court. Remember, we took 2 days arguing whether the Deputy Chief Justice has power to appoint or to constitute a 3-judge bench. And the case is still in the Supreme Court. How do you think it went? Because I know maybe most likely, we assume that Gachagua loses in the Court of Appeal. Whether the Deputy Chief Justice has power to constitute a 3-judge bench. And then the same case is taken to the Supreme Court, where you meet now the Deputy Chief Justice herself and the Chief Justice. You meet them there. Or do you think they are going to rule in favor of Rigathi Gachagua? You see, these are courts hell-bent to muzzle the rights of citizens. In fact, none other than Nelson Havi, the former president of the Royal Society of Kenya, posits that the Supreme Court has turned to be the court of last mistake. In fact, you realize, I think in this case, I have to agree with Nelson Harvey that our rights are trampled at the Supreme Court. At the Supreme Court, this is where you find the executive going there, interacting with the judges, and ruling always in their favor. Look at this nonsense of the health review, whatever, where people are also being forced to pay. It is not even working. Where people, even those who have other insurance covers, they are forced to pay. Look at the way it was implemented. And then the Supreme Court is very, very happy to allow such kind of things to happen, such an illegality to continue. And look at even the way they preside over cases that comes from the Court of Appeal. According to me, when you compare the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, Mother Come's court leaves a lot to be desired. In fact, the court is supposed to be the last point of defense. This is where Kenyans should go for justice. And that is why the justice should actually be seen to happen. Not just a matter of just politicking all the time. And when you look at Mother Kome, in fact, she has betrayed this nation. Would you even compare? Let me ask you. Given somebody like David Maraga, the former Chief Justice, and Mother Kome, whom would you trust? Whom would you trust? Because if for sure David Maraga could advise William Samoei Ruto and tell him, Mr. President, this parliament is illegal. It needs to be disbanded. It needs to be dissolved because of a certain constitutional case, issue here about two-third gender rule. You have not actually done it as should be done. It has not been implemented, so it needs to go home. And Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta refused to, said Parliament home. That's the kind of president of the Supreme Court that Kenyans need. Somebody who can tell the boss of the Republic, that is the CEO of the Republic, the head of government, that this one is illegal. Remember the way Maraga ruled against, remember the way he talked about illegalities of the elections and he dismissed the whole thing. Irregularities and illegalities of the elections of 2017. And he could stand and tell the president he didn't care, because for him it's just to apply the law. Apply the law as it should. But now what we have is a judiciary that doesn't care. It's a judiciary that is there to excite the presidency. It's a judiciary that is there, that has to keep on looking over what is State House saying. In fact, the Supreme Court look like an extension of State House. I don't know what you think, but Kenyans have completely lost trust with the Supreme Court. Bye.